back to another episode of Jess Talks, the part of the show where I come out and I talk. As I have said in previous episodes, I was homeschooled. My parents made the decision when my sister, my oldest sister, was just a baby, that they didn't want to send their kids away, that they wanted to be in charge of schooling and nurturing and loving and raising their children. So my entire life I was homeschooled all the way through high school. All right? And I wanted to discuss a little bit more on what I mean by that, especially now where homeschooling can mean actually a lot of different things. So when I say homeschooling, I don't mean that it was charter school, or that we did the school curriculum set by the state online at our house. I don't mean that at all. I don't mean that we did a lot of different curriculums in general that were, one size fit all type, which aren't a thing, by the way. I mean that my mom was my teacher, my father was my principal, but it was actually a little bit more than that, honestly. My mom taught me a lot of the academic stuff. Writing, reading, math, all sorts of things, basically anything that I'm not going to specifically call out someone else for. Those subjects I learned from my mother. My father, I actually learned a ton of history from. He's a bit of a history buff, so I know a lot of my history from him, and in recent years I've learned a lot of history from my older brother. Growing up, my art teacher and my music teacher was my grandmother. And my grandfather not only taught me all sorts of house improvements, how to take care of a home, how to be your own maintenance person, basically. I also learned a lot of humility from him, and he was my pastor growing up, so I learned a lot of religious and life lessons from him in general. And going back to my father, I also learned a lot of the day-to-day grown-up stuff I learned from my father when it comes to jobs or banking or trying to figure out what kind of future plans, or honestly a lot of car stuff I learned from my father growing up. So when I say I was homeschooled, I mean that academically my mother did a lot of the more academical stuff. We do history, reading, writing, all the English, math, health, science, stuff like that I would learn from my mother. We would use different curriculums. I personally did a lot of ABECA. That's what worked for me growing up, and that's kind of what a lot of my siblings that surrounded me worked best with. So I did a lot of ABECA. I did do quite a bit, in later years especially, I did do a lot of online stuff, CTC, math, I did a ton of, and then I did a little bit of easy peasy. I didn't do a ton of that because I was like 17 when we started looking into that one, but my younger siblings do a lot of easy peasy. But each of those subjects curriculums were for specific subjects. A lot of the time I would do, I did ABECA science and health. I did a little bit of ABECA grammar at the same time, but I did a different grammar book, which I'm actually drawing a blank on what it was called. At the same time, I would do a lot of Math UC Math. History was History Around the World book series. And a lot of my English, like writing, spelling, and grammar, had to do from either writing stories in general. Anyone who's actually been on this channel for a minute and have seen some of my previous videos, you'd kind of get picked up on I like writing stories. I like coming up with stories. And a lot of that has to stem from how we would do English, or how I personally would do English, writing, spelling, grammar, and stuff like that. Always big fan of storytelling. That would probably be another episode on stories and stuff like that and down the road. Now, I just want to kind of say this a little bit to kind of give an idea what it is that I'm talking about when I say I'm homeschooled, and why I think it's a better option. To put very, very simply on why I think it's a better option than public schooling or even private schooling, even though quick disclaimer, private schooling is better than public schooling, but homeschooling is even better than private schooling, in my opinion, and in what little experience I have. I think the biggest thing and the simplest thing is point blank period. God didn't make a mistake when he made the family unit. When he made a man and a woman, mom and dad, he gave them children. He'd give them grandparents, he would give them other family members, and he would give them the community, aka the church, to raise the child, to help raise the child and everything. And I'll get to that in a second too. Being influenced by people that I wasn't related to. But to put simply, I don't think he made a mistake when he made the family unit, okay? He did not go out and make it natural, I guess, to send your kid off to a stranger for them to be educated by somebody they don't know, and you don't know what they're being influenced about. Not the point I'm trying to make here today, though, so I won't go into much on that one. But that is the main reason. Backtracking a little bit, just a little bit. Some of my other educations out there being from people who I wasn't necessarily related to. I grew up in a church setting. I grew up going to church. My grandfather was my pastor, as I said earlier. My father was the assistant pastor, so I grew up within the church, very much so. I was influenced by a lot of that too. I learned a lot of history from the older people, and I actually learned about children and got into babysitting and hanging out with younger kids also at the church. I would help watch some of the younger kids that were there. I actually have some really fond memories of doing that exact thing. And then I would just learn how to socialize. That's where a lot of my socializing came from when growing up, was in the church setting. We'd have families, old, young, middle, babies, what have you, and I grew up, it was a small church, so I'd socialize with a good chunk of all of the above, everyone I just mentioned. I learned a lot from doing that, different perspectives, different viewings, and things like that. So I very much value all of that. As a person who was raised with homeschooling, who now works in the real world, quote unquote, real world, I've worked closely in all my professions with other people who are my age, who did grow up in the public school system, being raised by their teachers and not by their parents. And from my experience, from everything I've seen, I am eternally grateful for being raised that way. Where I work now, I do get occasionally I'll meet other homeschoolers or parents who are homeschooling, and when I tell them I was homeschooled, hey, that's cool, hey, I'm a product of what you're doing. They always ask me that. They always ask, did you like it? That's always the first question they'll ask me. The second one is what curriculum you used, which is always fun to answer because we used any and all, and it was kind of just all over the place sometimes, but that was good. It was good because me and my siblings, we all had different ways of learning. We had different interests, so we would use the different curriculums that best fit each one of us. And that's actually a little bit of the beauty of homeschooling, is that we were able to do that. I don't do math real well. I can do math, don't get me wrong, I can, but I don't do it as good as some of my siblings do. So they would be doing more higher grade math and everything, even if they were younger than me, and I'd be doing a lower grade math, but I was okay with that because I was better at other stuff. There's other things that I was better with, and in my education, I was able to target things that I was better at and learn at the pace that I was good at learning, and just being personalized and not having to try to fit a system and fit in one shoe fits all, which is not a thing when it comes to raising children and teaching children. So I had another point I wanted to backtrack to, but I don't know if I remember at the moment what that is. But I was influenced by a lot of things. Oh, I know okay. I was influenced by a lot of things growing up and everything. And as I said, now I'm in the quote unquote real world. And work with a lot of people who were public schooled and everything, and very, very grateful for the education that I did have, and very grateful that I was never put through what all of them, every single one of them, were put through in the public school system. A thing of interest was being influenced by a lot of different people, even though I was homeschooled. Just in general, especially now that I'm older, I'm still absolutely learning from my family, which I think is one of the coolest things ever. I did grow up in a big family. Again, anyone who's seen a lot of the videos on this channel, kind of, I assume you've put together, but I am part of a big family. I influenced by my older siblings, but of more recent years, I've been influenced a lot by my younger siblings as well. Random things I know because of their interests. I know the difference between Appaloosa horses and Pinto horses because of my mom and my older sister. I know a little bit about computers, not a ton, but I know a little bit about computers. If you start talking about motherboards and RAMs, I know I can keep up a little bit of what you're discussing because of my older brother. I know random facts about germs and polar bears because of my younger brother. And the list could go on and on and on, honestly. It really could. Very much so influenced by each one of them. But a lot of those passions and things that they're good at and they know, they would have never, one, would have found, and never, two, would have been able to study to the extent they have if they were public schooled. Yeah, there'd be some classes that would be able to focus on them, but not a lot, really, honestly. It just doesn't happen a ton in the public school system, especially with some of the more niche things that my family and I randomly study and we randomly know. I think something I would want to touch on real quick would be the socializing. As I mentioned before, I did get a lot of socializing when I was at my church because we would have so much, but it'd be more than that, honestly. I helped my mother do grocery shopping when I was like 8, honestly, if even that old. I just wanted to come on here and give a little bit more of an explanation what it is, what I mean when I say I was homeschooled. And just to let you know, if you're a parent who's watching this, who is inquisiting about homeschooling and you're worried about your child down the line, I'm the child down the line. I was homeschooled the whole time and I absolutely love it. And now that I am in the real world, in society, I am so grateful that I was homeschooled, that my parents did make that sacrifice to homeschool me and my siblings. I will forever be eternally grateful for. It's awesome. It really is awesome. And again, as a parent who is watching this, your child's gonna be okay, all right? We're going to be functioning adults in society. We really will be. We will be able to get a job. We will be able to hold down a job, make money, have dreams, have plans that we're actively working towards. I own a car. You know, I'm able to take care of the cars. I'm able to take care of my health. I'm able to take care of other people because I did do the daycare and I still babysit a lot. I'm not going to be specifically what your child will come out to be, but I'm part of it. It turned out okay. That's all I'm saying. Homeschooling is so much a better option. If nothing else, it is literally in the Word of God. Him telling the man and woman to raise their children, and he did not make a mistake when he made the family unit. So choosing to go back to more a natural way of schooling, I guess. A little bit of a hippie way of saying it, but it is true. Homeschooling is a better option, and if you are considering doing it, or if you're currently doing it, just know that we're gonna be okay. Okay, me and my siblings, we're homeschooled, and we're rocking and rolling through life. Honestly, we're having a ball doing it. We have our hard times, of course. We have our things that kind of put us, wrenches in our plans, but we know how to think through a problem. We know how to learn. That was a big theme of homeschooling, is we were taught how to learn and we were taught to enjoy how to learn. So if you have an issue, we know how to learn, and we just, we have common sense and we go for it. We shoot for it. We are functioning people in society. Kids, you're homeschooling them, they're going to turn out okay.